So I've been riding the Free-Night Planetary Freecoaster for a little over a month now. You guys might remember the video that I did showing you the internals of the hub and all of the other videos that I've done testing out this hub and showing the differences between it and other free coasters and showing this revolutionary new design. If you remember the internals video, I showed you an in-depth look at the actual insides of what this hub looks like and how it kind of works. And after a month, I've had a lot of questions about the internals of the hub itself, which is something that really not very many people have experience with as far as longevity goes. So what we're going to do today is take this thing back apart and take a look at the internals after a month of hard riding with this hub and just see how they look and the condition that they're in after I've been riding it and putting it through the paces to kind of get an idea of how durable and reliable this hub is going to be moving into the future, because like I've said previously, not that many people have had this hub for an extended period of time, so we really don't know yet the answers to the reliability and durability questions. So let's get this thing apart and take a look at the insides. So the first thing that we need to do to take it apart is obviously we gotta take off our hardware. Let's get a little bit closer focus. So obviously axle nut comes first. And the washer, we're gonna set those aside. Next up, we've got the jam nut on the drive side. So we're gonna take that apart as well. And to do that, we need our, shout out to Park Tools, because we need our 8mm Allen for our axle, and then we need the wrench size for the jam nut itself. So I guess this kind of serves as a how to take apart this hub as well, because we're going to be taking the axle all the way out. We're going to set this aside as well. We don't want to lose that. And now we can take out the driver. So we've got our jam nut off. Let's pop out our driver. Here we go. First time after a month of riding, and it doesn't want to come out again. There we go. All right, here's the first impressions. You guys are seeing it first. Boom. Here is the driver. Personally, after inspecting it here, I honestly feel like this looks exactly like it did whenever we first got this hub. Paws come up, spring back down. All of them do exactly what they're supposed to do. It doesn't look like it's worn whatsoever. Now the inside of the hub, after we set this driver aside, the inside of the hub looks about the same. The inside teeth don't look worn whatsoever to me. They literally look brand new, exactly how they did when I first got it. As far as the internals go, everything looks great. It all seems perfect to me. So the next step would be we want to take out our spacer here. If I can get it out with my fingers, I can. That brings the little clutch disc with it, with the gear. Let's just drop that out. And here you can see this. Absolutely no wear whatsoever. The teeth look perfect. The inside of this also looks perfect. Okay, so the next thing that we need to take out of here is the clutch assembly, which actually kind of just comes out on its own, seems like. So I'm gonna grab a small Allen wrench. And once again, I'm sorry for doing this. I know that it's not necessarily what you guys wanted me to do, but this is very important stuff for the longevity of this hub and just making sure that it works the way it's supposed to. So here's the clutch disc. Give a close-up look at that. I don't actually think that I took this out in the first video. No, I definitely didn't. So this clutch assembly just pops out of the hub, and this is kind of some of the mystery of the hub itself. So if you get this hub, just don't do it. Don't take this out. If you're gonna take the driver out, fine. Don't take this part out, because there's little pieces in here that if they get lost or if they get messed up, your hub's not gonna work the way it's supposed to. So we're gonna set that aside and take another look at the internals. This is after 1 month of riding. Everything looks brand new inside still. Obviously 1 month isn't a very long time, but still, it looks brand new on the inside. And that's good news. First step to taking the axle out, as we said, get all of the hardware and driver out so that when we hit this thing through here going this way, there's nothing up here to prevent it from going through. This is actually just like a profile hub in how it disassembles. And what you're gonna wanna do next is take your axle nut and thread it all the way onto the axle until the axle and the end of the axle nut are flush with each other. So as you can see right here, axle and axle nut are flush. This means that it's going to be safe to hit this with a hammer, and that is exactly what we're about to do. Got my shout out to Park Tool hammer here. And a quick tip with this is that you can use a block of wood on top of all of this to make it even safer. I'm not going to do that right now, but I would definitely recommend it. So what we're going to do is literally just hit this axle and push the other bearing out through this side. Everything is going to come out, so be ready to catch it. And all we got to do is hammer it. One time. I have not done this before. It just popped out perfectly. So it's actually pretty cool. So now we can loosen our axle nut back up and we can just slide our axle out. And it's that simple. And since this is doubling as a how to disassemble and reassemble the Freenite Planetary Coaster video, let's quickly run through reassembling this hub. Now I'm not totally sure how I'm going to edit this, but if you took this thing apart all the way down to a bare axle, the first thing that you're going to do is slide the bearing back onto your non-drive side. Then after that, we're going to replace our cone spacer on the non-drive side. Get it all the way tightened down, snug it up by hand, and then we're going to just slide it back into the hub. To do this, we have to line up the axle with the bearing on the opposite side. And once we get it all lined up, we got everything good. Let's take an axle nut and thread it onto our non-drive side, all the way onto it. Now that it's flush, we can take our shout out to Park Tool hammer and gently hammer it back into the hub. Very simple, back in place. As you can see here, we've got our axle in here, the bearing and everything looks good. The next thing that we're going to do is grab our clutch assembly right here. And as you can see, this triangle piece can come off. If it does, just line everything back up and get it properly reassembled, just like that. I do not recommend messing with this at all if you don't have to. But once it's reassembled, we can take our spacer with the big side pointing outward towards the same side as the triangle piece and just slide our spacer into it, making sure that everything lines up properly. If it does, it will be perfectly flush with this outside. Once we've got it all together, we can grab our wheel, and before we put this on here, I want to show you guys the inside of this hub. If you can look, and I'll probably put some arrows here, there are little indentations around the outside of the bearing, and that is where the outside pieces of this clutch piece line up. So this piece right here lines up with an indent on the hub. And when we put this back together, we're gonna slide our clutch disc assembly onto here, and I'm gonna have to take a look to make sure everything's good. You can simply rotate the axle to line up the indentations with the clutch piece. And once everything is lined up properly, let me double check here. Yes, everything is good. We can push our clutch assembly all the way in and make sure that it is fully seated in the hub. So it looks like I've got everything in properly. Here's another look at it. This is what it should look like. Once you have all of this good, you can grab your driver again. And since the driver, just the pawls force themselves down, you can literally just put your driver back on, push it into the hub. That is good to go. We can grab our jam nut for the drive side, thread it back onto our axle, super fast. And from there, we're done again. Everything's good, everything sounds good. So we can reassemble our axle nuts, put our hub guards, put anything else that we need to back onto the axle. And that's how you reassemble this thing. Listen, cassette, Freecoaster. Cassette, Freecoaster. It doesn't, I don't even have to say anything. It speaks for itself. Listen, hear it speaking? I don't even need to get close like that for you to hear it. It speaks for itself, and then it's silent because it's a Freecoaster directly after being cassette